What's up, everybody? Blessed be. My name is Manon, and you are watching Witch in the Working, where we will be discussing all things witchy in and around, throughout and about, above, below, and beyond. Please visit me on my other platforms as well, including Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon, all linked down in the description below. The full script of this video and most of the others is available on my Patreon account for download if desired, to build your Witch in the Working Book of Shadows, for instance. Also, please visit my Shopify store listed in the description below to get your Witch in the Working shirts, mugs, stickers, bags, beanies, and what have you. Also, I just recently started a Discord channel. I'll have that link down in the description below as well. I'm kind of new to it, kind of excited about it. It's neat because I can actually, when you go on, if I happen to be there, we can actually talk, to each other, like on an old-fashioned telephone type deal, which is really cool. I really like that. So go over there, check it out, and join up with everybody else who's gone over there. It's a great platform to communicate with others. In the world of the occult, whether you're working with Wicca, Druidism, Heathenism, OTO, or any of the plethora of systems out there today, there are many things they all have in common, but one major trait that I'm sure we can all agree with is that you need to be able to separate the magical and the mystical from the mundane. One of the greatest comforts of whether working a spell or a ritual is that you're doing something mystical and shadowy, outside of the norm, so to speak. So the last thing you want is worries or concerns of the mundane world interfering with your experience inside that magical world. This will tend to litter and jumble up your present magical moment, even to the point of complete distraction on the focus of your working. There are many triggers that can help us get into and maintain this otherworldly and magical feeling. And one of these is music. In this episode, we're going to go over the importance of ritual and music within our practices, and what and how to utilize this source of artistic pleasure for our magical endeavors. So 1, 2, 3, 4. No, just kidding. Roll the intro. Welcome back, everyone. So our magical practices and spaces are a lot more than just deciding to perform a magical act and then run off to the nearest calming space and getting it done. Magic doesn't work like this. There's quite a bit more involved when it comes to getting prepared and maintaining that witchy or magical feeling that tingles within us. Part of creating a magical space is in fact a huge part of making this transition from the mundane to the magical. Having a sacred space is key to performing a successful magical working, whether spells, rituals, or both. You can check out more about sacred spaces in my video linked above and also down in the description below. Setting a magical ambiance is so important in adding that extra oomph to our magical practice. Incense smoke gently dancing upon the vibrations of energy that waft forth from our very intentions. A darkened room with candles placed magically throughout to honor, invite, offer, and simply aid us in our magical endeavors. Even our clothing, should you choose to wear any at all, is a trigger that sets the mundane world apart from the magical planes we create and visit from time to time to fulfill our mystical and mysterious yearnings for the occult. Donning that magical robe and actually looking the part of that witch or wizard, standing proudly before an altar of tools, offerings, and gatherings, ready to commune and embrace the things that make the more feeble-minded and skeptical shudder under their bed covers at night. We are the hidden children, and we wear that badge with pride and enthusiasm. There's one more element that, in my opinion, is an absolute necessity when it comes to building this world between the worlds, that is achieved by casting our magic circle, regardless of the system you practice. The final element is music. As I've mentioned, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I have visited many circles over these last 30 plus years of both traditional and eclectic natures. And when I do visit a circle that does not implement music in their circle, it just never feels the same. Yes, there's a magical ambiance that exudes from the immediate surroundings, as the ambiance set by the candles, incense smoke, altar gatherings, and people themselves will help to accomplish this goal of separating and creating this sacred space and sacred gathering. But when you add music to the mix. In my opinion, this carries the ambiance to a level that is above and beyond the actions previously mentioned. Trust me on this, if you've never tried this before, it's totally worth it, and you'll never experience ritual the same way again. In fact, I'll go out as far as saying I don't know how some even perform a circle without music softly dancing away in the background. It's definitely an enhancement to ritual practice and any magical working for that matter when done correctly. Which, yes, there is a very wrong way of incorporating music into your working and a very productive way of doing this, which I'll go over with you shortly. Music in its most basic form has been around for thousands of years. Many times for the earliest of man, this came in the form of beats and drumming as a core. And many times chanting and singing were laid on top of this rhythmic trance-like energy that would burst into creation from the souls of those partaking in the ritual at hand. Music in this nature is one of the oldest enactments and creations that humans have been practicing in every culture around the world for thousands of years. Ancient cultures in Asia, Africa, Europe, North and South America, Australia, you name it. If it's a place on Earth inhabited by humans, it most likely also embraced tribal music at some time or another. What is amazing is, from tens of thousands of years old to present day, this same idea and methods are still being used for the same purposes. Drumming and music gets you in the mood for whatever it is you're trying to achieve. In certain circumstances, especially those involving ritual practices around the world, drumming is used to help set a trance-like state for shamans and other spiritual people to travel to other worlds and bring back messages for the tribe or village. Tribes and villages that partake in ritual practice do this to this very day. This is not an ancient practice that, went away and fell asleep or whatever, is abandoned. It's done every day, with some practices going back thousands of years, standing the test of time as fulfilling and effective throughout the centuries. None of these magical practices performed by these magical tribal peoples are performed in dead silence. There's usually always music in the background supporting the very essence of the spiritual practice at hand. So with this being said, why is it that so many of us practice ritual for Wicca or whatever occult practice in silence? It boggles my mind, and to be honest, all I can think of is that it's because maybe these practitioners just don't know any better and have never tried it. Sometimes some witches and magicians can be so wrapped up in these practices and making sure they're going to get it right that they simply forget about ambiance and ritual trance altogether. And let me be clear about my definition of trance and my mumblings moving forward. What I mean by trance isn't just zoning out and going into the traditional meaning of the word trance, which is a half-conscious state characterized by an absence of response to external stimuli. The trance I'm speaking of is simply a heavy mood that is set for a specific situation that embraces your entire essence of being and places it in an environment that completely absorbs you into a particular moment and feeling that is desired for that time, separating you in essence from the mundane and usual everyday life you're used to. Having music in the background definitely helps to achieve this complete envelopment of mystery and magic. In fact, many people that come to visit my circles that I do for whatever ritual at hand always leave with great comments and how the circle felt so different than any other they've ever attended, and how involved and magical it was. I honestly believe that a lot of that emotion and energy they experienced was because of the drumming and music I have softly drudging forward in the background, creating a sort of foundation of mysticism and phantasmagoria so desired. So let's get into the correct type of music for ritual occasions. Now again, this is simply my opinion and my personal preference, so if you feel like switching it up and changing some of my advice, then by all means do so, but try out my methods at least a few times, as I've had the chance to play around with and experience different audio formats throughout the years, and really feel like what I'm about to introduce is the best bet. Again, for me and many others anyways. So right off the bat, I'm gonna say try to use music that does not have lyrics within it. I'm not talking about Gregorian monks or even some pieces of music that may have a human singing, but it sounds more like an instrument or an intonation than a flat out audible saying or sentence. The reason for this is because we don't want the words we are listening to interfere with our thought processes and concentration on any specifics and wording we might be working with in our spells or rituals. Also, these words can literally change our feelings and perceptions to something other than the focus of the particular working or ritual. For instance, take an older country song like The Thunder Rolls from Garth Brooks. thunder in the song, music on the melodic and darker side of the river, decent tones. However, the music's great, but the words don't exactly paint a pretty picture, being that of domestic violence between a vengeful wife and a cheating husband going at it in the worst way possible. Maybe if you do find some pop music that you really like, get a version with no singing and that'll do just fine. However, there are tens of thousands, if not more, pieces of music out there circulating the world today that are ready to go, no words, just music of all styles. Some of it specifically for situations just like what we're talking about in this video. For instance, I love an album called Bones by Gabriel Roth and the Mirrors. I've been using their music in my circles for the last 20 years, and now I can't imagine having a circle without them drumming and performing in the background. I placed a link to their album in the description below. I literally have their album on my phone and I just play it from the first song straight through and set it to wash, rinse, repeat as soon as the album is finished. It has actually become a trigger for me now over the years. As soon as I hear that music, my mind immediately jumps to circle mode. Try to find some music that fits how you want your atmosphere to be inside your circle. I love percussion and minor key stringed instruments in my background, giving the atmosphere a mysterious, edgy, and dark feel. You may like things a little more lively and vibrant. Regardless, look for some good music and don't be afraid to play it in the background during ritual. I'm telling you, it's life-changing when it comes to your magical world. Don't play it too loud in circle, but loud enough to where the effect is happening and you can actually feel the music, the bass tones and the vibrations. If you have to struggle to hear the music, it's not loud enough. If you have to talk over the music, then it's just way too loud. Just find your happy medium. One of the easiest ways to introduce this music into your circle or ritual space is to get a Bluetooth speaker. I use these speakers from Harman Kardon. I used two as they link together all via Bluetooth, so you can place a speaker on one side of the room and one on the other if you wish. Honestly, I used to have a really large circle room, like 16 foot by 18 foot, and for the most part, one of these speakers is plenty even for outside purposes. They can get very loud. Just bring your cell phone into the circle with the music playlist of your choice, or even repeat a song over and over and voila. You have music for your circle room. Just make sure you make it where the music plays seamlessly, in other words, where you don't have to worry about it or focus on it. Have your phone repeat the album, playlist, or song so it's hands-free and worry-free until you're ready to turn it off. And I totally recommend using a speaker that has good bass sound, as the bass is the resonance that drives the movement and the connection, so to speak. Just going in there with your cell phone speaker isn't really going to cut it. There are some great sources on the internet to pull music from nowadays. For instance, a lot of the music I utilize for these videos that plays in the background that everybody loves so much is from a source called Epidemic Sound. I linked the address to them below in the description. With a low-cost monthly subscription, you can download royalty-free music and use it whenever and wherever you want. They have a great selection of witchy, dark, lyric-free music. Again, all of the examples of music that are accompanying this video in the background are all downloaded from Epidemic Sound. So if you haven't utilized music in your ritual before, grab yourself a decent speaker with some bass resonance capabilities. Download some good witchy, lyric-free music and give it a shot. If you're like most people, you're gonna love it incorporated into your ritual. Trust me. Another circumstance I utilize in Circle is drumming for magic. This is a little different than just playing some music that's already canned to set an atmosphere of magical stimuli. What I'm talking about in this situation is live drumming in Circle with, for instance, a hand drum of some sorts, like a djembe. So when does playing a drum in Circle become beneficial? Well, if you're working with a few people in your ritual and dancing to raise energy, there's nothing better than slamming out a rhythm live on a hand drum to dance to raise that energy. When you're raising energy in a circle, most of the time this can be done by dancing around the circle. This usually starts off slow and begins to build, slowly moving. Eventually you get faster and faster until you've reached a climax where you then collapse to the ground, for instance, and throw your hands up and release all the energy you just raised into the air. If you have a person or even a few beating out this rhythm on a hand drum and in essence leading the participants in the ritual dance, giving them a slow beat at first and then building faster and faster until climax and then release, this is the ultimate in raising energy and releasing for magical purposes. This is how tribes all around around the world have done these acts of magic for thousands of years. Why not carry on the practice that is inherent and natural to all of us humans? It's in our souls to make music and dance. Doing it ritually is the greatest honoring to the gods and goddesses. You can even use a hand drum to raise, program, and release energy as a solitaire. The act of playing the drum and working up the energy from slow to ecstatic is a great way to raise energy for any ritual or magical spell or act. I always keep a few hand drums in my circle room, and myself and a few others are proficient at playing them. We use live drumming anytime the coven dances, whether for ritual in general, a battle of the kings, or a spell working, for instance. A live drum is amazing to have for all of these scenarios and much more. The trick of live drumming is that you are now working the entire energy raising scenario in sync and in tune with each other by setting the pace for your dancers. You feed off of them and they feed off of you as a team. You can't do that really with canned music that's playing from your cell phone because you're going off of something set in stone, so you lose the group unity and vibe. There are quite a few drums you can acquire that exist. Some of the more common are frame drums, djembes, tablas, bongos, congas, cajones, doumbeks, and handpans. My personal favorite is the djembe. A good 15-inch works just great for me. I really like this type of drum because it gives me bass, which I talked about earlier, which I feel is a requirement, which is key to movement and connecting, as I mentioned, mid-tones and high tones. All three tones in one drum. Bass is what makes people move. No one at a dance club is rocking out to high tones and cymbals. It's the bass that you follow to set the rhythm to your motions. So bass is very important in my opinion. I'm going to show you a quick demonstration of how easy it is to play a hand drum. I have my djembe on hand to give you a lesson on the basics of how this particular drum works and why I feel it's one of the best drums for leading dance and energy raising in circles. So this is my beloved djembe. It's not exactly a traditional djembe that uses rope to fix the drum head and tune it. This is a djembe I bought a while back from the Guitar Center, and it uses drum tuning pegs to loosen and tighten the drum head. The looser the head, the lower the pitch, and obviously the tighter the head, the higher the pitch. So first things first, you don't have to be a musical genius to beat out a good rhythm on a hand drum. It's a very natural thing for a lot of us, and even the most rhythmically challenged peoples can keep up with a beat. This being said, I'm going to run through the basics of playing on a djembe, and the good news is this will work for a lot of drums out there. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if you're going to incorporate live drums in your ritual, I totally recommend having a hand drum that can cover the three basic tones of low, mids, and highs. If you have multiple people who will be playing, then there can be drums for each tone category that people can play. So it's very simple to create a nice rhythm that people can dance to and raise energy. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different rhythms, but this one is pretty simple for beginners. Start off with a bass tone like this, for instance. This is done on a djembe by opening the hand and hitting the center of the drum like this. There are many methods on how to position your hand, but I like this one. Next, you would incorporate what's called a slap. This, in essence, to me, is the replication of what would be, for instance, a snare drum. It covers the mid-tones that we spoke about with our trinity of lows, mids, and highs earlier in the video. And this is done by literally flattening the hand and slapping the midsection of the drum between the middle, where you play the bass tone, and the very edge. There's a third type of strike that can be done on most drums, which is called a tap. This is where the fingers strike the very edge of the drum and covers the highs trinity of our tones. This is where the individuality and character is displayed while playing on a hand drum. Once you get used to working that bass and mids tonal on the drum, get a little fancy and incorporate some of the highs for the icing on the cake. In the end, you will practice starting this rhythm out slow and then eventually working it up to a faster and faster beat until climax. It would sound something like this. that's going to wrap up this episode of Witch into Working. How do you feel about music and ritual? Do you use music in your ritual? What kind of music do you like to use in ritual? Let us all know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to ring that little bell to be reminded of wonderful and exciting future episodes to come. I love you guys and gals. Blessed be.